everybody. Welcome to the Legacy Lifestyle Podcast. Coming at you, I know I was going to say live, but it's not really live. It's recorded. Yeah, I don't know. It feels live. I just was
in the moment.
I was in the moment. I was feeling it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, we are going to start a new series today. It's going to be a 3-part series, I believe, at least as I have it mapped out here. And it's going to be called Finishing Well. So, Jesse, what do you think that we're talking about? We're talking about finishing well.
I'm assuming the end of your life.
End of your life, yes. Not finishing tables or anything like that, because I would have nothing to say.
Well, that's true.
You know I'm not a skilled craftsman that way.
Yeah.
No, you can vouch for that.
It's fine.
Well, we are going to talk about finishing well. And what does it look like to finish well? So let me just ask you, Jesse, as you think about the scope of your life, what would finishing well look like? What do you want to see?
I think for me, because I enjoy meeting and mentoring and discipling people, I would want to know at the end of my life that I left a lasting impact in their life.
A legacy, per se?
A legacy, exactly. But just that I don't necessarily care that I end my life with a ton of wealth or, I don't know, things, worldly possessions.
Yeah.
But it's more about, did I do everything that I was supposed to do in my life for the people around me?
Did you maximize your potential, maximize your purpose, things like that? Absolutely. Yeah.
And then not to get stuck. Like, I've had a lot of people that have retired and then they go back to work because they just don't know what retirement is supposed to look like for them. And so they work really hard, even in the last 10 years, 20 years of their life, and they don't actually take the time to enjoy all their labor prior to. Yeah. And so just kind of, I guess for me, kind of like trying to figure out, even now, looking forward to the future of okay, what would that look like? What would retirement look like for me, that I could continue to have fulfillment in life, but yet rest, you know?
Well, it's so interesting to hear you say that because, the idea of finishing well, I'm going to get to some stuff here in a second from someone who really influenced my life and in my journey, and that's work. I never got to meet him, but through different professors that I had who were carrying on his legacy and his work. But Dr. Bobby Clinton, who was a professor at Fuller Seminary for a number of years, did a lot of his this pioneering work. And Dr. Clinton, one of the things that he found, he surveyed not only just biblical leaders, that was kind of a place where he started, but he surveyed thousands of case studies. And part of his work, one of the things that he found was that most leaders do not finish well, which is really, really crazy when you think about it. But I believe it's Stephen Covey, the highly effective habits, or 7 highly influential,
seven highly influential people?
No. There's the highly influential people, and then there's the habits of highly influential. How to gain friends and win. Oh my goodness. I've got so much stuff up here going on. Anyway, the 7 habits of highly effective people or influential people. That's terrible. There's somebody screaming at their iPod or whatever right now, being like, it's this. Anyway, that's why you need to put stuff in notes. Anyway, I believe it was him who said, start with the end in mind, right?
Yeah.
Start with the end in mind. And it's something that I think that too many of us take for granted, of what is that end game? What is that picture? What do the retirement years look like? And not only what am I going to be able to do so, maybe because some people unfortunately have to go back to work, because they've not financially planned or whatever. There could be a lot of reasons for that. Life throws lots of curveballs and stuff.
It does.
But you definitely want to, you want to have an end game in mind, and then work back from that. And how do you do that? But here's the deal. This is the Legacy Lifestyle Podcast. We're talking about listen, to us, this is all about finishing well, because that's what legacy is.
Absolutely.
Legacy is when you leave something to the next generation. It could be financial, but let me tell you a lot more, and I'm finding out more and more that life is so much structured around relationships. Life really comes down to how we handle and steward our relationships. That could be working relationships, that could be family, that could be community, whatever. But really, the measure of someone's life, the measure of happiness and all of those things. I just finished a book called The Good Life, which was a look at the longest running study on happiness. It's out of Harvard. 80 years the study's been going on. And I mean, it was just crazy, just fascinating data and stuff that came out. But it came out over and over and over again that the quality of people's relationships really affected things like happiness.
Well, I remember going through COVID, and there was like tons of people, like I feel like there was a heightened amount of depression, anxiety, and even just like just not happy. Like they may not be depressed, but they just weren't happy because they couldn't. I mean, even going across state lines, for some people, they couldn't even do that. And so then they missed out on grandkids and fellowship with just their family, their immediate family. And so it's just like, it was really, really sad.
It's amazing how you take something like that away and you realize how much you miss stuff. I'll never forget, I didn't feel it as much. Of course, pastoring here in Kearney at Grace, and we had those, I think, whatever it was, those 4 weeks or whatever that we kind of shut down and just went online only.
Yeah.
And now we were getting to, as a staff, we were still hanging out. I was still coming in pretty regular contact with a lot of people, but I'll never forget that first Sunday back. Just the people that came in, and tears just came to their eyes right away, and they said, I needed this. You know. So those are the things. I mean, as we think about this, we're going to talk about finishing well. And again, I want us through this whole series to keep in mind, Dr. Clinton, of these thousands of leaders that he looked at, most do not finish well. And so the point of this podcast is, okay, well, so then how do you finish well? And so we're going to take 3 parts. But here's the thing. We're going to define finishing well, and this is from Dr. Clinton's work. And so you can care to agree or disagree or tweak or modify, however, but I would say that, hey, there's a lot of wisdom here from a man's lifetime perspective, lifetime work. We're going to go over 6 things kind of quickly here. This is how Dr. Clinton, and again, he's a seminary professor, so obviously faith is going to play a major role in this, and faith plays a major role for you and I. And so there's stuff that absolutely resonates with us. But I just want to invite our listeners, our viewers in to kind of examine where you at on these things. So let's start here. Basically, what does it mean to finish well? That's what we're answering this episode. What does it mean to finish well? Number 1 was this, that Dr. Clinton found that for those who finished well, they maintained a vibrant relationship with God. Maintain a vibrant relationship with God. Yeah, absolutely. Does that just mean I go to church, I sit in the pew, I put my money in the bucket or whatever, and that's it? That doesn't seem like vibrant to me. I don't know. Yeah, what do you think?
I don't know. I would think like a zeal, like an excitement to be a part of God's family, to do the things that God asks of us to do, reaching out to the poor, the widow, the orphan, and fellowshipping and encouraging one another in the faith, and walking that out.
I think about when the Bible says that we can love because He first loved us. I think that the importance of maintaining a vibrant relationship. If you try to do life in and of your own strength. And I realize there might be people listening or watching that maybe you don't, church isn't a priority, or maybe you might even be an atheist or whatnot, but I would still just challenge and say, what is it that's outside of you? What's the thing that's driving you? For me, it is a belief in God. It is a connection to that purpose, that because there's days, I'll just be honest, I don't want to show up, but I believe that, because I do believe there is a grand purpose in the universe. I believe that God has revealed Himself, through Jesus, and that Jesus modeled a way. That becomes the thing that I lean upon.
Sure.
That becomes my inspiration. And it's not just a how-to manual.
Right.
I don't think you'd have a vibrant relationship with a how-to manual, right? But I think there is a personal just relationship with God. And so
for sure.
I think that it is finding that thing that's outside of yourself, that strength that's outside of you, that keeps you moving and keeps you walking. Absolutely. And obviously how we discover that, I think you got to be in community. So again, it kind of comes back to relationship. Number 2 is this. maintains, one who finishes well through their whole life maintains a learning posture.
Good.
This could probably be a whole episode here.
Probably, and probably more for me than you.
Okay.
You're like, he's like a lifetime learner, which, I mean,
it's one of my strengths. Yep.
Is one of these, but it's just like, I don't know. There's some of it where it's like, if it doesn't interest me, I don't want to learn about it. And so I don't really have a learning posture when it comes to stuff that just does not intrigue me at all. Yeah. But yet when I'm in a new environment with people, I want to learn about what they do and kind of understand like behind the scenes, not just surfacey, like where do you work, but like what does that entail? Like what does your work entail? Yeah. But other than that, I don't know that I have a like, am I excited about learning stuff? Yeah. I don't know.
And here's the thing. I think that having a learning posture keeps your ego in check. I think it's so important. And I remember a long time ago, I ended up going to a leadership conference one time, and I heard this story from a guy. He was actually Sam Walton's kind of right-hand man. Okay, and I've shared the story numerous times, but it so impacted me. He wrote a book called The Walmart Way. So if you don't know, Sam Walton was the one who founded Walmart. But while they were going out, so he was with Sam in the early days, and they were going out to look, scout new locations and different things. And he said they came into this one community, and he said there was going to be one main competitor in town, and so as they rolled into town, they would go and inspect that store and see like what's the competition, what are they doing and stuff, and could this town use a Walmart? And he said one of us would go one way around the store, the other one would go the other way around the store, kind of examine everything, and then we'd go meet at a local diner or whatever and compare notes. And he said I walked in and he says I see this place, and he goes I can see light fixtures, there's different things that are out, merchandise that's this disheveled, not organized, all of this stuff. And he's just like, oh man, he's like we're gonna clean up in this town. He's like, because we just have a standard of excellence, all that. So all he could go around and see was all the negatives, right? And he was just seeing how great Walmart was going to do, all that. So he goes, sits down with Sam at the diner, and Sam's like, hey, what'd you think of that? And he says, Sam, we absolutely need to come to this town, and here's all the negative stuff I saw. And like Sam stops him and says, but did you see their pantyhose display? And he's like, no. He goes, oh, he says it's so nice. It's so much better than ours. It's way more organized. It was easier to see. And Sam had actually opened up the drawer. He looked for a tag or something that showed the manufacturer. He said, I wrote down their phone number. He said, we're going to call them up because we're going to have that display in all of our stores. And I guess what that taught me was, I've tried to, as much as I can, no matter who I encounter, whoever I'm with, I've always tried to have this posture of I can learn anything from anyone.
Sure.
There's something about someone's life experience. Absolutely. There's something about what they've seen that there's something I can learn from. I don't have to agree with everything, but I need to maintain a learning posture.
Well, it's like I learn things from my kids almost every day. So.
It's very true, especially when it comes to technology, right? They're always teaching us, Dad, do this. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. All right, number 3. Listen, according to Dr. Clinton, he says that number 3 is this gives evidence of Christ-likeness in character. And so again, if you think about this, whether you're a Christian or not, what is it about your life that you stand for? And are those ideals to aspire to? Now, for me, there's nobody better than Jesus Christ, right? I mean, I look at it and I think, if I wanted a next door neighbor, I mean, Jesus is going to be top of the list, right?
Well, I was just thinking, like, I can't remember her name, but a friend of ours had shared a podcast episode with us from Kelly.
I don't know.
Kelly. Anyways,
I'm coming
Megan
up blank.
Kelly.
Oh, Megan Kelly. Yeah.
And she was interviewing someone. Something. Anyways, he just brought up the fact that you needed to have certain moral characteristics at work in your life. Otherwise, no matter what you did in life, no matter what you pursued, what made you happy, whatever, it's like all of those things would fall short if you didn't have these certain moral characteristics at work in your life. And I thought that was very interesting because I'm like, most people aspire to just being a professional football player or a singer or whatever, famous writer, or just excelling in their work every day, that whatever they do. And I just realized, he's like, basically none of it matters it won't make you happy. It won't make you satisfied if you don't have these characters.
That's right.
So I haven't quite read the book yet to know what those characteristics are.
School of Greatness. His podcast is the School of Greatness. Lewis Howes, I believe, is his name. Again, we need to take notes and put that stuff down. But I remember the School of Greatness. I'm actually going through that book right now. But you made me think about super chickens. Chickens.
I can think about right now is chickens with capes on. So I don't think
not those kind of super chickens. For. Yeah, no. There was actually a study. They were studying chickens and egg laying and all this stuff. And so this researcher had put a group of super chickens together, ones that should be genetically superior, right, to then just a regular group of chickens. And here's what they found. They put them in together like these different. They'd go through like some life cycles of chickens and whatnot, and what was crazy was that the super chickens did outproduce the regular chickens, but not by much. But here's what did happen. The super chickens had like this superiority complex, and it really reduced down to like these 3 chickens. They pecked one another to death.
What?
Yes.
How do they have a superiority complex?
Well, because what they did is they basically these super chickens, like, because they were genetically superior. Now I don't know that they knew that, but I'm just saying there was this hen picking order, and they dominated one another, and so it went down towards like 3 chickens. Now these 3 chickens could produce a lot of eggs, okay, as much as like the other group, but they would kill each other. And the takeaway from this study, this researcher was looking at this and saying, if we're only measuring things on output,
right,
then you could have a really hostile environment.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Where there's just a bunch of hen picking and super chickens, and maybe they get a lot done, maybe they're outperforming, but it's not an environment of flourishing. Whereas the environment of flourishing where there was not that happening or whatever, they were still producing good things. And the parallel it was in this leadership book, was just how, again, back to that moral compass, that moral center. Here's the thing. When you give evidence of Christ's likeness and character, you may be a leader who gets a lot of results, but how's the flourishing? How's the flourishing in your organization? Or are you just producing a bunch of super chickens that, hey, well, cream rises to the top and we just go out and dominate, but you're leaving bodies in the wake.
Right.
And then what we're saying is like, it could be better. And you have to have some sort of moral compass. Otherwise.
Well, I mean, we've seen multiple like people in leadership, like in church leadership, that are like, they are people of prominence in faith, if you follow that. And so it's like, and there's been moral failures, or there's been things with finances or stuff like that just gets them in trouble. And it's like, by the grace of God, there go I. Right. So it's like, okay, God, keep me humble, keep me teachable, keep me just in a way that it's like, okay, help me to be a person of great character so that I don't get caught up in the things of this world that can distract us and really kind of undercut our ability to leave a legacy.
Absolutely.
Truly.
So that kind of plays into point number 4, where he says lives out, again, a key to finishing well, according to Dr. Clinton, lives out truth so that convictions and promises of God are seen to be real.
So is this your truth and my truth, or
no,
what is the definition?
I think it's capital T truth, right?
Yeah.
Lives out truth so that convictions and promises of God are seen to be real. Unfortunately, listen, as a leader in the church world, sometimes it can be disheartening, maybe even a little bit of disillusionment when you see people who don't practice what they preach, don't follow through. And, it's interesting because we say these things like, well, nobody's perfect. And no, certainly nobody is perfect. And obviously, if we were perfect, there's no need for Jesus. However, sometimes we can use that to not maybe live the lives we should be living, or to make excuses for ourselves too.
What's the scripture that says, it's like grace abounds.
Yeah, where sin does abound, grace does abound more.
And it says, and then it, like right on the heels of that, it says, but don't let grace abounding basically be the trip up to continue going on in sin.
Yeah, don't continue on. Yeah, just because there's grace doesn't give you a license, right?
And so it's like kind of not using the grace of God, his willingness to forgive and his mercy towards us, and even his ability to kind of help us walk uprightly, to walk in truth.
Yeah.
Not to allow that to be kind of a license, I guess, if you will, to do whatever we want.
Yeah. Well, and I just think about it this way. I think about, if you're a person of faith, what are you doing that makes people say, I want that? Or I want to be part of that, Is my faith producing something? In other words, I talked about, Jesus. I'd love to have Jesus as my neighbor. Well, but am I being that in my neighborhood? Right. Do I benefit? Is that, because I think that's what it means. Like, you have these truths and convictions so that the promises of God are seen to be real. Is there a way in which I'm leading my family? Is there a way in which, I'm loving you? Is there a way that I'm doing things that makes other people say, hey, there's something true, there's something right about that? Again, I know I'm not perfect. Right. And I know that I don't always live up to the things I aspire to be, but I'm moving towards those things, And again, I think a great leader, someone who finishes well, is someone who, not in an instance or two, but over a lifetime, you can take a look at the trajectory of their life and say, no, they really did aspire to this, and it really did make a difference.
Absolutely.
I was helping out with a funeral not too long ago with a gentleman who was a former school teacher, and it was incredible just to hear. Maybe people commented on his faith, but just his willingness to help, these young student athletes or help kids in the classroom. Yeah. And it was just awesome. And I had this thought of, like, there's someone who finished well. Yeah. There's someone who really finished well. They had this relationship with God. They had a relationship with their community. It was a really cool thing. So, number 5 is this: leaves behind one or more ultimate contributions. So are we talking about money there?
I mean, I think for some, maybe
it could be. Does it have to be money?
No, right. No, I don't think so. Because it's like, you have those people that they're ultra wealthy, right, and they leave behind like trust funds, right, or charities or grants, even for colleges, so people
maybe have libraries named after them,
right?
Things like that.
So it's like, I mean, it's not a horrible thing to have wealth, and to have that be a part of leaving a legacy. But I think probably this is more pointing towards maybe relational. I mean, that would be my thought.
Let me help you out there a second. Here's what I think it connects to. And this is something that'll probably come up on the podcast a lot. There's themes that I notice it's this idea of vocation. Yeah. Vocation actually comes from the Latin word vocare, which means to call. And so if you think about vocation, you could also think about calling. Vocation and calling are synonymous, or they should be. Now, they don't always get treated that way, because when I say vocation, what do you think of?
Work.
What I get paid to do, right? And here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to challenge any of you listeners or watchers to the podcast here, challenge this. Listen, vocation is not necessarily the thing you get paid for, but it is your calling. It is your calling. It is the thing that as you look at your life, if you were to take a look back and just look at different experiences and the times where you were thriving, the times where you were flourishing, the times where you felt like you were contributing. And here's the thing, for some of us, it might not be in the 9-to-5 rat race that you do, but it might be in some of the things that are outside of that. It might be coaching Little League.
Absolutely.
Right? Or it could be teaching someone guitar. It could, whatever those things are. Now, obviously, naturally, one of my vocations is teaching, right? Like, teaching is one of those things, as I look back, it wouldn't matter what arena I'm in. Even if I got hired at McDonald's, they'd probably promote me to a trainer of some sort. So it'd be like, oh, you explain this stuff well, right? I just know that about myself, right? So the ultimate contribution then is, if you look back at your life, how could you impart what you have to that next generation? Yeah. How could you say, hey, this is what I did, and this is how you can benefit from my wisdom? So I want us to think about, when you leave behind, that is that legacy, right? What is your vocation? Not the thing you get paid for necessarily. Now, your vocation might show up, right? Your calling might show up in the thing that you do in your 9-to-5. There might be aspects of that, whether it's helping people or maybe you're hospitable, whatever.
Well, I was just thinking about this generation currently. It's like their primary goal is to work for what they love. Right. So it's like they'll almost like hunt down a job or create one out of nothing, just so that they can do the thing that they love the most. Right. So I'm like, elevate that
the bag, the leather goods and stuff, bags
like
and all that.
They're a company that is like they're reaching these
impoverished areas,
countries, in ways of giving them jobs,
That's
giving
right.
them opportunity to
Create.
gain wealth and create something, and possibly even get them to go to college or further their
That's right.
education on some level.
Yeah.
And I just think about that was created from just a few people that wanted to impact the world. And so they didn't necessarily have that available to them, but they created it out of nothing. And so I feel like this generation is kind of in that vein. Yeah. Like they're wanting to make an impact on some level.
We're going to have to come back and probably do an episode on vocation at some point, but I love this. And this is going to be loosely correct. This is just the day of, I should have taken better notes. Frederick Buechner, right. Buechner, or something like that. Frederick Buechner, he has a great quote when it comes to vocation. And it's something along these lines of your vocation is the place where your gladness and the world's deep longings meet. So in other words, like when you look out of the world, and let's just say you see homeless people or you see poverty, and so you go and make some money so that you can go and give to that. And it's like that makes you glad, but it's also a void in the world where those things meet. That's where your calling is.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's a great quote. So, and I think I did it justice. It's not exactly that, but it's close. All right. The last one here. So I said 6 things. Should we recap the first 5?
Sure.
So let's go. Maintains a vibrant relationship with God. Number 1. Number 2, learning posture. Maintains a learning posture. 3, gives evidence of Christ-likeness and character. Number 4, lives out truth so that convictions and promises of God are seen to be real. Number 5, leaves behind one or more ultimate contributions. Think about that. Again, if you're reverse engineering your life, what's the thing I want to leave behind? What is it? Okay, and that idea of vocation. Here it is. Last one is walks with a growing awareness of a sense of destiny and see some or all of it fulfilled. So in other words, of the people, this is former seminary professor, Dr. Bobby Clinton, case studies, thousands of leaders. He found that the key to finishing well, leaders who he surveyed who finished well, they had a growing awareness of a sense of destiny, okay? A growing sense. So, I mean, that means it grew throughout their lifetime, right? Cool. And they see some or all of it fulfilled. And I'm really convinced that, even the things that you and I are talking about, the legacy that we want to leave, I'm hoping that it's bigger than I could even imagine on some level. Sure. But I hope I get to see some of it, like in our later years. Sure. I hope I can see that, the seeds that we're planting today will be trees, but I hope it goes beyond that.
Absolutely.
And I have a sense. I mean, I can honestly say that. It's like I have a sense. I believe that it will. That's my hope. I don't know. What'd you think?
I don't know. It kind of makes me want to tear up.
You are tearing up.
So I'm just like, I don't know. Like I think for me, it's like walking in such a way throughout life of just, it's not about me.
Yeah.
Kind of that. If I can teach my kids anything, it's that life's not about them.
Yeah.
It's about, and it's not that I don't want them to value who they are, who they were created to be, but just that the world does not revolve around them.
Not to be self-centered.
Right. And so, and to look out into the world and to think, I even tell my kids now, I'm like, be a blessing, be Jesus, be something that people can see, that maybe they're not getting. Maybe they're not getting it at home. Maybe they're not getting it from other people in their class. Maybe they're overlooked or underestimated or whatever. I'm like, you can be an encouragement to them.
Yeah.
And so just living from a perspective of destiny is making sure it's not about me. It's about others.
Yep.
It's others focused. But for me personally, it's living with Christ in mind.
Yeah.
It's like he is my end goal.
Yeah.
He's the love of my life. And so it tears me up because I'm like, may I never lose perspective of that,
So if you're watching this podcast, Jesse's got the waterworks going, and maybe some of you are reaching for the tissues right now. No, it was good. It was a good Oprah moment there. All right.
Well,
so,
I just say, people that don't know me, they may not realize it's like, I may cry often, hopefully not, but.
And people who don't know us or me would like, he's a jerk. All right. For pointing that out. I tease her about this stuff all the time. But
I watch commercials and I cry.
That's very true.
He just turns and starts laughing at me.
All right. Well, hey, we're going to land it there. And so that's what does it mean? So in these next 2 episodes, we're going to keep those things in mind of what does it mean to finish well. Next week, we're going to talk about barriers to finishing well, right? So that's, if this is the model, this is how we want to finish, thinking about our ultimate contributions, think about our vocation. Okay, well, what are the barriers that get in the way? That's next week. And then after that, we're going to do 5 things to enhance chances of finishing well. All right. So that's where we're going over the next couple. So please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and check out the content that we're posting out there all the time. You can follow us on Instagram. Legacy Lifestyle Kris, I believe, is our Instagram handle there, and or go to legacylifestyle.life. Sign up for our mailing list. We're going to be sending out leadership book summaries. So we read the book, so you don't have to. That's a great deal. Anyway, hey, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.